I have a question for men. I feel like a lot of men are no longer interested in dating. They give up on dating. They're not even trying. Why do you guys think that is the case?
Imagine scrolling late one night, half asleep, and you land on a video that stops you cold. A woman in her late 30s, perfectly lit ring light, expensive apartment in the background, tears rolling down her cheeks as she stares straight into the camera and says the words nobody ever thought they'd hear from that side of the fence. I was wrong. I thought I could have it all. I thought the good men would wait forever. I thought I had more time. I'm almost 40 now. No kids, no husband, no hope, and even the average guy I used to ignore won't even look at me anymore. If that doesn't make you sit up and ask what the hell just happened to the world we all grew up in, then you need to stick with me until the very last second of this video, because what I'm about to walk you through is not a trend, not a phase, not a social media moment. It is the quietest, most unstoppable revolution in human history, and by the time we're done today, you will never see men, women, or society the same way again. Before we go any deeper, do me a solid right now. If you're ready for the raw, uncut truth with zero corporate filter, smash that like button, share this video with every single man in your contacts who needs to wake up, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and select all so you never miss a drop. We release fire every single week, and you do not want to be the guy who finds out about this 6 months late. Also, if you're tired of watching everything you've worked for evaporate because of inflation and centralized control, go lock in your financial future today. Angry's Crypto Academy is linked in the description. Full step by step on how to buy, store, trade, and protect your crypto so you're the one still standing when the system finishes collapsing. Click it, enroll, change your bloodline, and if these videos are hitting you the way they're supposed to, keep the jet fuel coming. Buy me a Red Bull with the link down below. Every can keeps the truth flowing. Now let's get into it. Something absolutely historic is taking place right now, and almost nobody in the mainstream is willing to connect the dots. Women across the entire Western world, and increasingly in parts of Asia and South America, are waking up to a nightmare they genuinely never believed was possible. For 50 straight years, they were told by universities, by media, by government, by every influencer with a blue check that men were obsolete, that masculinity was toxic, that a woman could have everything on her own timeline, that the future was female, and men needed to step aside or be forced aside. And men, being the rational, problem solving, action oriented creatures that nature built them to be, listened very carefully. They heard every word. And then they did exactly what they were told. They stepped aside. They walked away. They went silent. And now that silence is absolutely deafening. Open TikTok today. I mean, right now. And tell me what you see within 10 scrolls. You will see woman after woman, 35, 38, 42 years old, sitting in immaculate apartments that suddenly feel like cages, mascara running, voice cracking, reading from the exact same script. I thought I had more time. I thought the boss babe thing would fulfill me. I thought the good men would always be waiting when I was finally ready, but they're gone. My DMs are empty. Men don't approach anymore. Men don't even look at me anymore. I would take an average guy with a job and a kind heart right now, and I can't even find that. These are not fringe videos. These are not one offs. These are tens of thousands of confessions, millions of views, and the numbers are exploding week after week. And the most shocking part, the part that actually terrifies these women when they finally realize it, is that men are not angry anymore. They expected rage. They expected begging. They expected men to fight harder to stay in a game that was clearly rigged. Instead, they got calm, cold, peaceful indifference. Men looked at the deal on the table, looked at the risks versus rewards, ran the numbers like they run everything else in life, and quietly said, no, thank you. And then they left the table completely. Picture this scene, because it is happening in every major city right now. You walk into a high-end restaurant on a Saturday night, the kind of place that used to have a 6-month waiting list for reservations. Half the tables are empty. The ones that are occupied are almost entirely groups of women checking their phones every 30 seconds, sipping one cocktail for 2 hours because nobody is buying rounds anymore. The revenue has collapsed so hard that places are closing weekly. The same thing is happening in bars and nightclubs. Venues that used to make 80% of their money from men buying drinks for women are now filled with circles of broke women nursing warm glasses of wine because there are no men left to pay for anything. Entire industries that were built on male provision and male attention are dying in real time, and almost nobody in the legacy media has the courage to report what is actually happening. But it goes so much deeper than dating and nightlife. Men are not just walking away from women, they are walking away from the entire centralized system. While governments keep printing money that buys less every single day, men are building parallel economies at warp speed. Decentralized, reputation based, invitation only networks where value is traded directly. Skills for goods, goods for services, crypto for labor, labor for food. You don't need your wiring fixed? There's a guy who will do it for a side of venison and 2 cases of ammunition. Need plumbing work? Another brother will handle it if you help him pour a concrete pad or cut his acreage for the season. These networks are growing exponentially. They operate completely outside the taxable, trackable system. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud: women are completely locked out. If a woman needs something done and she doesn't have a man in her life willing to vouch for her or negotiate on her behalf, she is out of luck. And even if she does find a guy willing to deal directly, the price is double, like sometimes triple, what another man would pay. No discounts, no sympathy, no more white knights riding in to save the day. That era is over permanently. And this is not some secret society with passwords and handshakes. This is millions of individual men all reaching the exact same conclusion at the exact same moment in history. They looked at the incentives, looked at the legal risks, looked at the cultural hatred aimed at them 24/7, and chose peace instead of chaos, solitude instead of drama, brotherhood instead of betrayal. And once enough men made that same private decision, the public reality flipped almost overnight. South Korea is the clearest example we have. The canary in the coal mine that already suffocated. Everyone in the West loves to talk about the 4B movement, women swearing off dating, marriage, sex, and childbirth. The media eats it up because it fits the women don't need men narrative perfectly. But the truth is the complete opposite. South Korea has the lowest birth rate on planet Earth, not because women suddenly decided they hate families, but because men decided they are done playing a game that is rigged against them from the moment they are born. When feminists there demanded strict anti harassment laws that made it basically illegal for a man to pursue a woman after 1 or 2 rejections, men didn't protest the law. They weaponized it. They turned ruthless compliance into an art form. Now a man can walk up to a woman, ask once if she wants to get married and have children, and if she hesitates or says maybe later, he smiles, says have a nice life, and disappears forever because the law says he cannot ask again without risking jail time. The power dynamic flipped in a single legislative stroke. Women went from having infinite time and infinite options to having almost zero time and almost zero options. And the men are not angry about it. They are calm, they are at peace. And that calm indifference is crushing the old system faster than any protest ever could. The exact same pattern is now spreading globally. United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Japan, China, Germany, Sweden, all following the same trajectory at different speeds. Men are quietly opting out of every institution that hates them. They are getting in the best shape of their lives, stacking money, learning real skills, building brotherhoods, and refusing to sign up for a social contract that only takes and never gives back. And the women who spent decades celebrating how they didn't need men are now staring at empty apartments, empty wombs, and empty futures, making apology videos that nobody is watching because the men they're apologizing to have already moved on. This is not about revenge. This is not about punishment. This is about consequences finally arriving at the address they were always mailed to. For 50 years, society told men they were the problem. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. That their instincts were toxic, that their desire to protect and provide was oppression, that their very existence was a threat to progress, and men, being the adaptable creatures they are, adapted. They internalized the message and then they acted on it. They removed themselves from the equation, and now the equation no longer balances. Let that sink in for a second. The women making these videos are not 23-year-old party girls who still have a decade to course correct. These are women in their mid to late 30s and early 40s who followed the script perfectly. Elite university, corporate job, travel photos, living my best life captions. Turned down every decent guy who showed genuine interest because he wasn't tall enough, rich enough, exciting enough. Spent their prime years chasing the same top 5% of men who would never commit. Hit 35 and decided it was finally time to settle. Kept the same standards they had at 25. And now, 5 to 10 years later, they are staring at biological clocks that have run out, inboxes that are dead silent, and men they rejected living better lives than they ever imagined possible, completely indifferent to their existence. That is not a hypothetical. That is millions of real women right now today. And the apologies are pouring out because they finally see the cliff they walked off years ago. But the cold reality is that the men they are apologizing to are not watching. They are not hurt enough to need the apology and not invested enough to accept it. They have found peace, real, unbreakable peace. And once a man tastes that, there is no offer on earth tempting enough to make him trade it away. This is where the concept of ruthless compliance becomes the most powerful weapon men have ever been handed. In South Korea, when feminists demanded laws that made persistent courtship harassment, men agreed and complied perfectly, turning the weapon aimed at them into a shield that locked women out of their own game. In the United States, when women said they didn't feel safe with men in gyms, coffee shops, or public spaces, men agreed and vanished from those spaces entirely. Gyms are collapsing because men built home setups or joined invite only male facilities. Coffee shops are empty of male customers. Entire industries that depended on male traffic are dying quiet deaths while men brew their own coffee and train in garages. When women complained that men were gatekeeping corporate advancement, men agreed and started openly prioritizing other men for mentorship, promotions, raises, and networking opportunities. The glass ceiling didn't break, it turned into a titanium vault door. When women said comedy and television were too offensive, men agreed and advocated for the complete removal of all edge from entertainment. The result? Shows became unwatchable, ratings collapsed, and the only people hurt were the ones who demanded the change. Every single time women hand men a new rule designed to limit male behavior, men comply ruthlessly and use the rule to exclude women from the very systems they claim to want to fix. It is legal. It is peaceful, it is devastatingly effective, and it is spreading to every country on earth that adopted feminist policy. By 2030, the demographic numbers are going to be undeniable. In the United States alone, 45% of women aged 25 to 44 will be single and childless. When you add single mothers who are functionally undateable for most high value men, you are looking at 60 to 70% of women in that age range completely alone. In South Korea, Japan, and large parts of Europe, the numbers are even worse. And these are not angry blogger predictions. These are cold projections from census bureaus, Morgan Stanley, major universities, and insurance companies that make their money predicting the future accurately. Because men are the gatekeepers of commitment, always have been. Women are the gatekeepers of intimacy. But men decide whether something becomes a family, whether resources are committed long term, whether a bloodline continues. And right now, men across the developed world are closing that gate and walking away with the keys. The average man today is asked to sign up for a deal that looks like this: work longer hours, earn more money, hand over most of the resources, except being called toxic for wanting traditional roles, risk losing half his assets and most of his children if she decides she's not happy 10 years in, risk career destruction from a single accusation, risk paternity fraud, risk false allegations, risk being replaced the moment a taller or richer guy shows interest, and get exactly zero guaranteed loyalty or respect in return. Any rational human being looks at that contract and says, hard pass. So men did. And once enough men did, the entire social structure flipped. Now let's talk about the economic side, because this is where it gets truly brutal. Artificial intelligence is not coming in 20 years. It is here right now, and the first wave of job destruction is aimed directly at the roles women dominate: administrative, HR, marketing coordinators, customer service, teaching non STEM, therapy that is mostly listening, social media management, content moderation, recruiting, paralegals, the entire bloated corporate middle layer that exploded when companies could hire 2 women for every man they used to need. All of it is disappearing faster than the corporate press is willing to admit. Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, and the World Economic Forum have all published reports saying hundreds of millions of jobs are exposed. And in the West, 2/3 of those jobs are held by women. The second wave, coming in 2026 to 2028, hits the creative fields women were told were safe: graphic design, copywriting, journalism, translation, photography, video editing, influencer content, OnlyFans. Every revenue stream in that category is about to be replaced by tools that are already better and essentially free. Men have been pivoting for a decade into trades, engineering, software, logistics, energy, construction, security, and decentralized finance. All fields AI is nowhere near replacing and is actually making more valuable. A plumber who can integrate smart diagnostics is about to make double. An electrician who can wire off grid microgrids is booked 2 years out. A diesel mechanic who can keep old equipment running when parts vanish becomes literally priceless. And all of those men are operating in cash, crypto, or barter networks women cannot access. The average woman with a gender studies or communications degree and 15 years of brand strategy experience is about to learn her entire skill set can be done by a $29 month subscription. Her student loans don't disappear. Her rent doesn't freeze. Inflation keeps climbing, and there is no man coming to subsidize the lifestyle anymore. That is why the apology videos are accelerating. These women are not just sad about being single, they are watching the economic cliff get closer every single day, and they finally understand there is no net. Meanwhile, single men under 40 are the fastest growing wealth demographic in the Western world. Their savings rates are exploding because they are not bleeding money on dates, engagement rings, weddings, mortgages for houses they don't control, or child support for kids they barely see. They are buying land, building off grid setups, stacking crypto, learning to hunt and farm, and forming small, high trust communities where the only currency is competence and loyalty. And when they do want female companionship, they are not going back to the West. They are getting passports and getting on planes. Colombia, Brazil, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Ukraine, Poland, places where women still smile when a man walks in, still cook, still see family as the ultimate achievement instead of a side quest. A man making 60,000 a year in the States lives like a king in half the world, dates women 10 years younger who treat him with respect and never once worries about divorce, rape, or false accusations. That is not fantasy. That is millions of men already doing it, and the numbers are exploding monthly. The Passport Brotherhood is no longer a fringe movement. It is a full blown exodus. By 2030, the map will be unrecognizable. Pockets of high trust male enclaves across red states, South America, and Southeast Asia running on crypto, barter, and iron boundaries. Urban centers in the West turning into dystopian retirement communities of aging, childless, broke women working 3 gig jobs to afford 400 square foot apartments surrounded by other women in the exact same position, all wondering where the men went while the government rolls out digital IDs and social credit systems sold as protecting women and children. And a huge percentage of women will cheer those controls on because safety has always been their priority, even when it means total enslavement. Men saw it coming. That is why they are building outside the walls before the gates slam shut. The black pill is not that women are evil. The black pill is that incentives are real, biology is real, and and consequences do not care about feelings or apologies. Women were sold a 70-year fantasy that they could live like men, delay family forever, ride the carousel through their prime, then flip a switch at 38 and have everything fall into place. An entire civilization bet everything on that fantasy being sustainable. It never was. It was a credit bubble built on male labor, male taxes, and male willingness to ignore reality. The credit has been called in. The bubble has popped, and there is no one left to pay the bill except the people who spent decades telling the bill payers to go away. So when you see another tearful apology video from a woman who just wants a good man who will treat her right, understand you are watching the final credits of a movie everyone thought would never end. She is not talking to the men she rejected. Those men are gone. She is talking to the void, hoping the universe will rewind the tape. It will not. The universe does not negotiate with regret. Men have found peace, real peace, the kind that comes from knowing you are no longer anyone's plan B, anyone's ATM, anyone's emotional punching bag, the kind that comes from waking up every day, answering only to yourself and the brothers you would take a bullet for. That peace is priceless, and once tasted, no offer on earth can buy it back. That is the end game. That is where this road has always been heading, not with anger, not with violence, just with millions of men making the same quiet decision. I choose me. And when enough men choose themselves, the entire world changes. And so here we are. The revolution is already over. Most people just haven't realized who won. Let us zoom in even closer on what daily life is going to look like for the average Western woman by the early 2030s, because most people still think this is abstract or decades away. It is not. The foundations are already crumbling in real time, and the speed at which it is accelerating is breathtaking once you know what to look for. Start with housing, the single biggest expense for most people. Right now, in every major blue city, the rental market is being propped up by one demographic above all: single, childless women aged 28 to 45 with corporate salaries or remote gigs. They are the ones paying 2 grand a month for a 450 square foot studio so they can live in the energy and walk to brunch. When the AI wave finishes wiping out those remote white collar jobs, and it will be mostly done by 2028, those women are not going to magically downsize gracefully. They are going to fight tooth and nail to stay in those apartments because leaving means admitting defeat. Admitting the lifestyle so was a lie. Landlords already know the storm is coming. That is why you are seeing a flood of new luxury micro studios at insane prices. They are trying to extract every last dollar before the music stops. When the layoffs hit critical mass, you are going to see vacancy rates explode overnight and rents crash in the most expensive cities. But not because things are getting better. They will crash because the primary tenants can no longer pay and there is no one left to replace them. Men have been priced out of those areas for a decade and have zero interest in moving back in to subsidize someone else's Instagram aesthetic. Now, layer on top of that the complete collapse of the wedding industrial complex. In the United States alone, the wedding industry was a $70 billion machine built almost entirely on one thing: men footing the bill for a one-day fantasy that statistically ends in divorce 50% of the time, and 80% of those divorces initiated by the wife. Venues, planners, photographers, dressmakers, jewelers, florists, caterers, every single one of them is about to get absolutely annihilated. The average wedding cost in 2024 was already pushing $35,000, and men looked at that number, looked at the divorce stats, looked at the legal bias, and quietly said, "Yeah, I'm good." The ones who are still getting married are either religious traditionalists or high status guys who can afford to lose it all and do not care. The middle class guy, who used to be the core customer, has vanished. Bridal shops are already closing in record numbers. Destination wedding resorts in Mexico and the Caribbean are bleeding cash because the pipeline of American fiancés paying for everyone's vacation has dried up. And when the wedding industry dies, hundreds of thousands of women who built entire careers around it, planners, makeup artists, content creators in the wedding niche, are going to be left with skills that are suddenly worthless and wazoo. The divorce industry is next. Family law attorneys, mediators, court reporters, forensic accountants, all of them made fortunes for decades on the predictable flow of men getting cleaned out. That cash cow is being led to slaughter. Men under 35 are now refusing to marry at rates never seen before. The ones who do marry are doing it overseas with ironclad prenups written under foreign jurisdiction, or they are simply cohabitating with zero legal ties. The entire apparatus that was built to transfer wealth from men to women under the banner of fairness is about to starve. And when those law firms start closing offices and laying off staff, mostly female paralegals and assistants, another layer of the female economic base collapses. Now take therapy and mental health, a $1 trillion global industry that is overwhelmingly female on both sides of the couch. Women are both the primary providers and the primary consumers. Men have been opting out of therapy for years because most of it is built around pathologizing male nature and telling men to open up in ways that get weaponized against them later. When the economic floor falls out and women can no longer afford $200 a session to talk about their feelings, that entire sector implodes. Therapy practices are going to shutter. Psychology graduates with six-figure student debt are going to be competing for barista jobs. And the irony will be delicious. The very industry that spent decades telling women they didn't need men is going to collapse because there are no men left to indirectly subsidize it through alimony, taxes, or dating expenses. Dating apps are already dead for 80% of men, and they are about to become ghost towns for women too. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, their entire business model was built on an artificial scarcity of women and an endless supply of men willing to pay for premium features that never worked. Men figured out the scam, deleted the apps, and never came back. The revenue charts look like a heart attack victim flatlining. These companies are now desperately pivoting to female friendly features and subscription tiers aimed at women. But women do not pay for dating apps. Never have. Never will. By 2027, the vast majority of dating apps will either be acquired for pennies by some AI startup or simply shut down. And when that happens, the last public space where men and women used to interact by the millions disappears completely. Retail is feeling it already. Women drive 80% of consumer spending, but they do it with men's money. Credit cards, husbands, boyfriends, orbiters, state subsidies. When those income streams evaporate, the retail apocalypse we saw in 2020 to 2022 is going to look like a warm-up act. Luxury handbags, fast fashion, overpriced skincare, boutique fitness studios, wine bars, self care spas. All of it is about to get obliterated. Malls that were already on life support are going to become modern ruins. Entire chains built around female discretionary spending are boarding up windows while men buy one pair of boots every 5 years and call it a day. Even the tax base is collapsing. Single men pay the overwhelming majority of income tax in most Western countries because they earn more, spend less, and do not qualify for the endless list of female focused deductions and credits. As more men go minimalist, move to low tax states or overseas, trade in crypto and barter, the state loses its ability to fund the very programs women were told would replace husbands. The money printer is already coughing blood. By the end of this decade, it will be on its deathbed, and there will be no cavalry coming. And through all of this, men are not suffering. They are thriving in ways that would have been unimaginable 20 years ago. The average single man in 2025 has more disposable income, more free time, more peace, better health, stronger friendships, and higher testosterone than at any point in modern history. He wakes up when he wants, eats what he wants, trains how he wants, and answers to no one. His circle is small, vetted, and loyal. His money compounds because it is not being siphoned off. His risks are calculated, not emotional. He is, for the first time in his life, the priority. That is the part that drives the old system insane. They expected men to collapse without women. They expected loneliness, depression, video game addiction, and despair. Instead, they got the most dangerous thing possible: millions of calm, focused, physically strong men with money in their pocket and zero obligations. Men who have tasted real freedom and will never, ever give it up again. And when those men do decide they want companionship, they are not negotiating with the entitled remnants of the West. They are boarding a plane with a one-way ticket and a grin. They are building lives in places where women still compete to be wives, not adversaries. Where dinner is cooked with a smile, not a chore chart. Where loyalty is the default, not a pleasant surprise. Where a man's provision is celebrated, not mocked. Where children are seen as the ultimate win, not a burden to be outsourced. The gap between those two realities is going to become a canyon. One side will have peace, brotherhood, legacy, and abundance. The other side will have cats, wine, debt, and government surveillance sold as safety. And there will be no bridge across that canyon, no apology video sincere enough, no promise tempting enough, no amount of tears sufficient to lure men back into a burning building they already escaped. That is the future that is locking into place right now today. While most people are still arguing about who gets to speak at the graduation ceremony. So when someone asks you where all the good men went, you can tell them the truth. They did exactly what they were told for 50 years. They went away, and they are never coming back. Now, let's talk about the one thing nobody wants to say out loud, but every single man already feels in his bones: the complete and total collapse of female friendship networks and social support systems that everybody swore would replace husbands and families. For decades, women were sold the ultimate fantasy. You don't need a man, you have your girls, brunch on Sundays, wine nights on Wednesdays, group chats blowing up 24/7s, Galentine's Day, girls' trips to Tulum, the whole package. They were told that female friendship is stronger, deeper, more loyal than anything a man could ever offer. And for a while, when everybody was young, hot, childless, and had disposable income, it almost looked true. Instagram made it look bulletproof. But biology and economics do not care about filtered photos with bottomless mimosas. Fast forward to 2032. That same women who swore their friend group was their real soulmate are now 42, 45, 48 years old, broke or getting there fast, no children, no partner, no savings, and suddenly the group chat is quieter than a graveyard at 3 a.m. Why? Because friendship between women has always been conditional on two things: shared fertility windows and shared resources. When both of those disappear at the same time, the entire structure collapses like a house of cards in a hurricane. The pretty one who used to get all the male attention and therefore all the social status? She's aging out hard. The attention is gone, and the resentment from the others is now bubbling to the surface. The rich one who always paid for vacations and bottles? Her remote marketing job got replaced by an AI that does it better for $9 a month, and now she's quietly asking if anyone can spot her for dinner. The one who built her entire personality around being the hot one, the fun one, the single one. She's looking at childlessness and poverty and is quietly spiraling into bitterness that leaks out in passive aggressive comments nobody wants to confront. And the worst part, none of them have the skills or the emotional bandwidth to actually support each other through what is coming. Female friendship was never built for hardship, it was built for good times, gossip, validation, and splitting appetizers. When real crisis hits, when the layoffs come, when the fertility doctor says it's officially over, when the 401k is drained and the parents are dead and there's no man and no children to lean on, women discover something brutal. Other women are not equipped to carry them. They never were. They fold. They ghost. They compete. They turn on each other faster than you can imagine. Men's friendships, by contrast, are forged in utility and loyalty. You help me move, I help you fix your truck. You watch my back, I watch yours. No feelings meetings required. No 3-hour phone calls about why Chad didn't text back. Just action, respect, and showing up when it matters. That is why male friendship networks are not only surviving this collapse, they are getting stronger every single day. The same guys who used to waste their 20s chasing women are now in group chats, trading land deals in Paraguay, welding tips, crypto alpha, workout programs, and plans for the next hunting trip. No drama, no gossip, just brothers building something real. Women are about to learn the hardest way possible that strong, independent woman and ride or die girl squad were marketing slogans, not reality. And then there's the medical system. Modern gynecology, fertility clinics, hormone replacement therapy, cosmetic surgery, the entire anti aging industrial complex, all of it is about to hit a brick wall at 150 miles per hour. Why? Because every single one of those industries was built on one core assumption: there would always be an endless supply of men willing to finance a woman's desire to freeze time. Egg freezing at 35, IVF at 41, fillers, Botox, tummy tucks, breast lifts after the wall hits, all of it paid for by husbands, ex-husbands, new husbands, or orbiters who still had hope. That funding stream is gone. Fertility clinics are already reporting massive drops in consultations because women in their late 30s suddenly can't get approved for the loans anymore, and there's no man co-signing. The average round of IVF in the US is $25,000, $40,000 after meds and multiple attempts. The average single woman in 2030 is going to be staring at that price tag with $11,000 in savings and a cat that needs dental work. The clinics know it. That's why you're starting to see quiet closures and mergers. The entire industry is a zombie walking toward a cliff. Cosmetic surgeons in Beverly Hills, Miami, and Seoul are already feeling the chill. The high-end patients who used to drop 6 figures to stay competitive in the dating market are disappearing. The ones still coming in are doing it on credit cards they can't pay back. When the defaults hit critical mass, those practices collapse. The surgeons move to Dubai or retire early, and the women who were counting on one more procedure to get back out there are left looking exactly like the age they actually are, with no one around who cares enough to lie about it. Mental health infrastructure is going to be the final domino. Women already consume the vast majority of antidepressants, anti anxiety meds, and therapy hours. When the jobs disappear, when the friend groups fracture, when the fertility window slams shut forever, when the state checks shrink to nothing, the demand for mental health services is going to explode at the exact same moment the funding disappears. Public systems are already overwhelmed. Private therapists are about to watch their client base evaporate because nobody can afford $200 a session anymore. The result is going to be a tsunami of untreated despair that no amount of government yoga apps or TikTok affirmations can fix. And the state, the same state that spent decades telling women they were partners in power, that state is going to reveal its true face the moment it no longer needs female votes to stay in control. Women were useful tools to expand government authority over men. Divorce laws, child support enforcement, domestic violence industry, campus title online, star chambers, all of it designed to give the state more power under the guise of protecting women. Once men walk away and the tax base collapses, women become liabilities, not assets. The welfare that was promised as a replacement for husbands will shrink to levels that barely cover cat food and electricity. And every new restriction, digital ID, social credit score, carbon allowance, online speech bill will be sold as keeping women safe from harmful men, while quietly locking women into open air prisons they cheered into existence. Men saw every bit of this coming. That is why they are building parallel systems now while there is still time. Small towns in Idaho, Montana, Texas, and the Dakotas are seeing an influx of based, high skilled men buying land, forming tight communities, and quietly preparing for what comes next. The same thing is happening in Paraguay, Uruguay, parts of Mexico that are still sane, pockets of Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. These are not doomsday compounds with barbed wire and machine guns. These are normal guys creating high trust zones where competence, loyalty, and masculinity are currency. Women are not banned out of hatred. They are excluded because the second one enters, the entire dynamic shifts from cooperation to competition for attention. The peace dies, the purpose dies, the community dies. So the boundary is absolute. And the few women who do get access in the future, they will not be the ones making apology videos today. They will be the ones who never bought the lie in the first place. Fit, feminine, pleasant, loyal, traditionally minded women from cultures that still value family over feminism. They will be welcomed with open arms. The ones who spent their prime years chasing careers and ideologies will be permanently on the outside looking in, wondering how it all went so wrong so fast. That is the final, ugliest truth nobody wants to say. This was never about equality. This was always about who gets to write the rules when the music stops. Women wrote the rules for 50 years, assuming men would keep playing no matter how bad the game got. Men finally read the rule book, closed it, and walked away from the table. And now the ones who wrote the rules are discovering that the game cannot exist without the players. They spent decades insulting, taxing, and imprisoning. There is no malice in any of this. There is no secret council of men laughing in a basement. There is only millions of individual men making the same rational decision at the same time. Protect your peace, protect your resources, protect your future. When enough men do that simultaneously, society itself restructures around their absence. And that restructuring is happening right now, faster than any government, any corporation, any activist group can react to. So the next time someone asks you why men are quiet, why they don't approach anymore, why they don't care anymore, you can give them the shortest, truest answer in history, because they finally listened. And once a man truly listens, he never goes back. Now let's talk about the part that keeps the old guard up at night, the complete weaponization of male compliance and how it is quietly turning every single institution women thought they had captured into ghost towns that work against them 24/7. People still don't understand just how perfectly men have flipped the script. Every time a new rule, policy, or social norm was created to protect women or make spaces safer, men didn't fight it in the streets. They nodded, said, "Yes, ma'am," and then used the rules so ruthlessly that the people who wrote it are now the primary victims. This is not random. This is pattern recognition at the highest level. Take workplaces. For 20 years, HR departments, 90% female, rolled out endless training about microaggressions, safe spaces, inclusive language, and how any uninvited male attention could be harassment. Men sat through the PowerPoints, signed the forms, and then complied perfectly. Result? Zero mentorship for women, zero after work drinks, zero casual conversations at the coffee machine. Male executives stopped traveling with female subordinates. Male engineers stopped pairing with female coders on late night debugging sessions. Male managers started documenting every single interaction in writing. Promotions for women stalled out because no senior man is willing to stick his neck out when one bad interpretation can end his career. The gender pay gap that feminists love to scream about, it's about to become a canyon, not because men are holding women down, but because men are protecting themselves with absolute precision. Universities are another masterclass in ruthless compliance. Campuses spent a decade telling men that looking too long, complimenting appearance, or asking for a phone number in the wrong tone could get them expelled under Title IX. Men heard the message loud and clear. Fraternities started banning alcohol at parties to avoid liability. Male students stopped approaching women entirely. Female enrollment is now plummeting at many second and the third tier schools because the college experience that used to be sold to teenage girls, football games, parties, meeting future husbands, has been legally sanitized into oblivion. The same schools that bragged about making campuses safer for women are now facing budget shortfalls because women don't want to pay $70,000 a year to sit in a library with other women while men study trades or go straight into six-figure remote tech jobs. Enrollment cliffs are already here. Give it 5 more years, and half the liberal arts colleges in America will be shuttered or merged. Even the military is feeling it. The same governments that demanded gender integration and lowered physical standards to get more women in uniform are now staring at recruitment numbers that have fallen off a cliff. Why? Because men looked at the new rules, mixed barracks pregnancy policies that let women opt out of deployments while keeping rank, mandatory diversity training that treats masculinity as a disease, and quietly decided the juice is not worth the squeeze. The infantry, special forces, pilot slots, all the high risk, high prestige jobs are still 95% male, but the overall numbers are collapsing because the average guy would rather learn HVAC or code from his garage than sign up to be a social experiment. The Pentagon is panicking, offering $50,000 signing bonuses and still missing targets by double digits. When the next real war comes, they are going to discover that the military they rebuilt for women and minorities cannot actually fight. The entertainment industry is already dead and just twitching. Hollywood spent a decade replacing male leads with strong female characters nobody wanted to watch, then wondered why box office revenue collapsed. Streaming platforms are burning billions because men stopped subscribing when every show became a lecture. Video games went woke, sales tanked, and now the biggest titles are coming out of Poland, Japan, and South Korea, places that never drank the Kool-Aid. Male content creators who used to chase mainstream approval now build audiences in the tens of millions, talking openly about gender dynamics, money, and freedom. The legacy studios are laying off diversity hires by the thousands, while independent manosphere creators are buying houses in cash from YouTube and Rumble revenue. The power shifted so fast, the old guard never saw it coming. And social media itself, the very platform that birthed the boss babe delusion, is turning into the most brutal mirror women have ever faced. 10 years ago, Instagram was an endless parade of engagement rings, gender reveals, and my husband is my best friend posts. Scroll today, and the algorithm is flooded with women in their late 30s doing the same pose photo in the same robe, holding the same coffee mug, caption reading, still healing, still growing, still thriving. The comments are ghost towns are filled with other women leaving broken heart emojis because they're in the exact same boat. The ring photos have been replaced by I said yes to myself posts that get 400 likes and zero genuine celebration. The platform that sold the fantasy is now documenting its autopsy in real time. The fitness industry is another corpse on the pile. Gyms spent years catering to women. Pink dumbbells, booty classes, selfie mirrors, harassment policies that treated every male glance as assault. Men left in droves and built garages, basements, and private warehouses into temples of iron. Now, Planet Fitness and all the big chains are closing locations weekly while the home gym economy is printing money. Rogue Fitness can't keep racks in stock. Testosterone replacement clinics are booked solid. The average 35-year-old man in 2025 is stronger, leaner, and higher T than the average 25-year-old was in 2015. And he did it without ever stepping foot in a corporate gym that hated him. Real estate is quietly undergoing the biggest shift nobody is talking about. In every major Western city, the condo towers built for single professional women are about to become the biggest financial black holes in history. Developers assumed the dual income, no kids couple or the high earning single woman would keep buying forever. Instead, men are moving to rural counties, buying 20 acres with cash or low interest VA loans and building barn dominiums or shipping container compounds with their brothers. Property values in flyover country are exploding while urban luxury condos are starting to sit empty. When the layoffs hit and the maintenance fees become unpayable, those buildings will turn into vertical slums overnight. And the kicker? Property taxes in those rural counties are funding schools that still teach boys how to be men. While the urban tax base collapses and the schools there teach children there are 97 genders and that masculinity is a disease. The geographic split is becoming a value split in real time. Red states and red counties are about to experience a masculine renaissance, while blue cities become matriarchal retirement homes with no children and no future. The trad wife slash trad life movement that blew up online is only the visible tip of a much larger iceberg. Millions of men are quietly importing or courting women from cultures that never went through the feminist experiment. Philippines, Colombia, Thailand, Ukraine, Poland, etc. These women are not doormats. They are fit, feminine, family oriented, and grateful for a man who provides and protects. A man making $65K a year in the States can retire at 40 in Southeast Asia or South America with a younger wife, multiple children, and a life his grandfather would recognize. The women left behind in the West scream misogyny and trafficking, but the planes keep taking off full of men who stopped caring what those women think a long time ago. Every single metric of male well being is going in the exact opposite direction the legacy system predicted. Suicide rates for young men are dropping for the first time in decades. Overdose deaths are leveling off. Gym memberships for men are being replaced by home gyms, but total iron moved is higher than ever. Savings rates for single men under 40 are the highest recorded since the Great Depression. Life expectancy for men is stabilizing while women's is starting to decline from stress, obesity, and alcohol. The lonely men epidemic the media loves to fearmonger about is a myth. Men are not lonely, they are peaceful. There is a massive difference. Women, on the other hand, are reporting record levels of anxiety, depression, and dissatisfaction, despite having more rights and freedom than any generation in history. Birth rates are collapsing, not because women suddenly hate children, but because men refuse to fund a system that punishes fatherhood. The fertility industry is about to implode when the last wave of desperate 38-year-olds realizes there are no more men willing to co-parent with a woman who spent her prime years treating men like disposable utilities. That is the ultimate black pill. Every institution that was rebuilt around female preferences is now collapsing because those preferences only worked when men were forced to pay for them. Remove male compliance and the entire house of cards folds in on itself. And men are not coming back to rebuild it. They are building something new, something decentralized, something that does not need permission from people who hate them. So when the final history books are written about this period, and they will be written by men who walked away, this era will not be remembered as the triumph of feminism. It will be remembered as the greatest example in recorded history of what happens when a civilization tells half its population they are obsolete, and that half quietly says, okay, and then proceeds to build a better world without them. The revolution was never loud. It was millions of men closing their wallets, locking their doors, boarding planes, lifting heavier, earning more, and refusing to apologize for existing. And it is only just beginning. Let's go even deeper into the one area nobody in the mainstream dares to touch: the coming collapse of the entire female centric medical and pharmaceutical pipeline that was built on the assumption that men would always be there to foot the bill indefinitely. Start with birth control. For 60 years, the pill, IUDs, patches, implants, all of it was subsidized directly and indirectly by male labor through taxes, insurance premiums paid mostly by men, and husbands covering copays. The entire sexual revolution was underwritten by the belief that women could ride the carousel consequence free and then pivot to family when they felt like it. That financial model is dead. Insurance companies are already jacking up premiums and cutting coverage for elective reproductive care because the risk pool no longer has enough healthy young men paying in to subsidize it. When the full AI job purge hits and millions of women lose employer insurance, the out of pocket cost for birth control is going to jump from $0 $20 a month to $150 $400 a month. The same women who screamed, "My body, my choice," are about to discover that choice has a price tag when there is no man around to pay it. Abortion access is the next sacred cow headed to the slaughterhouse, not because of politics, but because of pure economics. Planned Parenthood and private clinics run on a mixed model: low cost or free procedures subsidized by government grants and wealthy donors, plus high margin cosmetic services and cancer screenings paid for by insured patients. The government grants are drying up as tax revenue collapses. The wealthy donors are the same aging boomers whose portfolios are about to get wrecked by the everything bubble pop. And the insured patients who used to cross subsidize the system are disappearing as corporate insurance vanishes. Clinics are already closing in rural areas. Give it 5 years and the urban ones will follow. The same activists who bragged about abortion on demand without apology are going to be standing in 6-hour lines for a $1,500 procedure they can't afford because the system was never self sustaining. It was always a male funded luxury. Hormone replacement therapy for menopause management is another $1 trillion industry about to implode. The average woman starting HRT today is looking at $3,000, $8,000 a year for the rest of her life to keep the hot flashes away and the skin looking tight. Who paid for that in the past? Husbands, ex-husbands through alimony, or the state through Medicaid expansion. That funding is gone. Compounded pharmacies are already raising prices 300% because demand is spiking, while supply chains for the raw materials are controlled by countries that don't care about Western women's feelings. When the price hits $15,000 a year out of pocket, the vast majority of childless 55-year-old wine ants are going to be sweating through the night sweats with no relief, wondering why nobody warned them that having it all came with an expiration date written in fine print. The entire anti-aging industrial complex, Botox, fillers, lasers, threads, PRP facials, the whole menu is 85% female consumers. The average 40-something woman today spends $7,000, $20,000 a year trying to compete with 25-year-olds on dating apps that men have already deleted. When the corporate salaries vanish and the credit cards max out, those med spas are going to turn into ghost towns overnight. The injectors, almost all women with massive student loans from aesthetic nursing programs, will be defaulting en masse. The dermatologists who built 8-figure practices on female vanity are going to be selling their Lamborghinis to cover payroll. And the women who are counting on one more round of filler to get back out there are going to be staring at a face that finally matches the mileage with no audience left to notice. Even basic healthcare is about to become a privilege, not a right. Women use roughly 40% more medical services than men across their lifetime, paid for by insurance pools dominated by male premiums and tax dollars from male heavy industries. When men opt out of those systems by going minimalist, moving overseas, or bartering for care in cash networks, the entire risk pool collapses. Premiums skyrocket, deductibles become unpayable. Wait times for female specific care, mammograms, PAP smears, osteoporosis treatment stretch from weeks to months to years. The same politicians who promised women's health care is human rights are going to be quietly cutting coverage because there is no money left and no political cost to screwing over a demographic that no longer has husbands voting as a bloc. And then there's the weight loss and obesity industry, another multi-hundred-billion-dollar empire built exclusively on female customers. Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy, all of it was subsidized in the early days by insurance companies, betting they could keep women thin enough to stay in the workforce longer and reduce long-term costs. That bet is over. The drugs are already moving to cash only at $1,000, $1,500 a month. When the average laid off 42-year-old can no longer get her employer to cover it, the weight she lost in 2024 to 2025 is coming back with interest. Plus, the metabolic damage from years of hormonal birth control and alcohol as personality. The fitness influencers who made millions selling body positivity right up until they quietly went on GLP-1s are about to watch their empires collapse as their audience balloons back to pre-Ozempic size with no disposable income left for $79 workout guides. The pet industry is the final canary. Women adopted cats and dogs at record rates as child substitutes. The average single woman over 35 today spends $2,000, $4,000 a year on premium food, groomers, daycare, and emergency vet bills. That money is about to evaporate. Shelters are already reporting return rates spiking as women who lost their jobs hand over Pandora and Bentley because they can't afford the $8,000 emergency surgery for eating a sock. The dog mom, wine mom aesthetic is going to be replaced by Craigslist ads begging someone to take an emotional support animal off their hands. Every single one of these industries was a luxury masquerading as a necessity, paid for by male labor, male taxes, or male attention. Remove the male subsidy, and the entire facade collapses in a matter of months, not decades. And the most brutal part? Men are not standing around gloating. They are too busy building the next thing. While the old system eats itself, men are quietly mastering skills most people thought died with their grandfathers: welding, small engine repair, reloading ammunition, raising livestock, building off-grid power systems, distilling water, growing food at scale. Every weekend, thousands of men are in garages, barns, and warehouses teaching each other what public schools stopped teaching 3 generations ago. The knowledge transfer is happening at warp speed because there is zero gatekeeping and zero ego. You show up, you work, you learn, you add value, you're in. The same men who were called basement dwellers in 2015 are now the most valuable humans on the continent when the grid flickers. Women were told those skills were beneath them. That real power came from HR certifications and media studies degrees. Now they are discovering that the ability to keep a generator running or a cow alive is actual power. And it's locked behind Brotherhood walls they spent 50 years telling men to dismantle. The trad wife content you see blowing up online is only the surface. Underneath it is a global resettlement wave that historians will study for centuries. Millions of Western men are not just visiting Thailand or Colombia, they are buying land, getting residency, marrying local women, having 3, 4, 5 kids, and building bloodlines that will outlast anything happening in the decaying West. These men are not rich. They are electricians, diesel mechanics, remote devs, crypto traders, guys who figured out how to make $60K, $120K a year from anywhere with Starlink and a skill. They are living in gated compounds or mountain villages where their daughters will never know what a girl boss is, and their sons will grow up learning how to shoot, farm, and lead. The genetic and cultural bottleneck happening right now is biblical in scale. Meanwhile, the women who rejected them are inheriting a society that is about to resemble a gender swapped version of Japan's herbivore men crisis, except without the social cohesion or the savings rate. A nation of aging, broke, childless women competing for the bottom 20% of men who didn't get the memo, all while the top 80% live like kings on another continent with younger, happier wives and houses full of children. That is not hyperbole. That is the trajectory locked in as of 2025. And the very last nail in the coffin will be the realization that even the state cannot save them. Every welfare program, every subsidy, every universal basic income trial is funded by taxing productive men. When enough productive men leave, go gray, or go overseas, the math stops working. Argentina tried printing money to pay women to stay home. Result? 300% inflation and riots. Sweden tried the world's most generous parental leave system. Result? Men stopped having kids because the tax burden became unbearable. Every single experiment ends the same way when the producers walk away. The future is already written. One path leads to peace, legacy, brotherhood, and abundance. The other leads to cats, credit card debt, government surveillance, and the slow realization that empowerment was the most expensive lie ever sold. Men chose the first path. The rest is just gravity. And gravity does not negotiate. Gravity does not care about your feelings, your follower count, your master's degree, your tearful apology video, or the hashtag you marched under in 2017. Gravity simply pulls everything back to Earth when the artificial supports are removed. And every single support that was holding up the modern Western woman's lifestyle was built on one thing and one thing only: male compliance. Remove that compliance and the entire structure falls straight down, faster than anyone ever imagined possible. That is where we are right now, in the year 2025, watching the first cracks turn into canyons in real time. The apologies are getting louder, the tears are getting heavier, the excuses are getting wilder. But the planes keep taking off full of men who have zero intention of ever coming back to fix what they were never allowed to build in the first place. So let me paint the final picture for you. The one that will be reality by 2035, unless something truly biblical intervenes. Picture two worlds running side by side on the same planet. World A, a 43-year-old former marketing manager in a 600 square foot apartment in Austin, Portland, or Brooklyn. $187,000 in student debt that will never be paid off. Works 2 gig jobs that barely cover rent and DoorDash. Has 3 cats and a bottle of rosé in the fridge that costs more than her daily food budget. Hasn't been touched by a man in 4 years. Spends her evenings scrolling dating apps that are 99% bots and married men liking posts from women 10 years younger living the life she thought would still be waiting. Her mother is in a state-funded nursing home she can't afford to visit. Her father died broke, paying alimony to a woman who left him in 2008. Her closest friend just ghosted her after she asked to borrow $800 for rent. She makes another TikTok with mascara tears, asking where all the good men went, gets 40,000 views, 112 comments telling her she's a queen, and zero actual help. She falls asleep to true crime podcasts that all have the same villain, a man. She wakes up and does it again. World B, a 38-year-old former diesel mechanic turned crypto trader living on 5 acres outside Medellin, Colombia, or Chiang Mai, Thailand, or a small town in eastern Poland, married to a 29-year-old woman who cooks like his grandmother and looks at him like he hung the moon. 3 kids under 6 running barefoot in the yard while chickens roam free. Wakes up at 6 a.m., trains in a home gym, eats eggs from his own hens, checks the charts, teaches his oldest son how to change oil on a dirt bike, has dinner with 6 other expat families where the men speak in shorthand and the women laugh without checking their phones. His biggest monthly expense is private school for the kids, and it costs less than 1 month of the Austin woman's rent. His net worth grows every month because he hasn't bought a new iPhone in 5 years, and his wife thinks Louis Vuitton is a French disease. He has not thought about the country he left once in the last 3 years, except to renew his passport. Those two worlds are not science fiction. They are happening right now today in parallel. One is dying, one is being born, and the gap between them is growing so fast that by 2035, it will be measured in light years, not miles. And here is the part that seals it forever. The men in World B are not coming back, ever. Not for nostalgia, not for the culture, not for a dying relative, not even if the dollar collapses and the West begs them to return as heroes. They have seen paradise built on their own terms, surrounded by peace, loyalty, legacy, and children who call them dad without an eye roll. There is no offer the West can make that competes with that. No tax break, no apology, no we were wrong from a talking head on CNN. Nothing. The pipeline is one way and accelerating. Every week, another plane takes off full of men who sold everything, closed every account, deleted every dating app, and never looked back. Their group chats are full of land photos, ultrasound pictures, and videos of toddlers speaking fluent Spanish or Thai before they can spell their own names in English. Their biggest debate is whether to add a fourth bedroom or just build a second house on the same property for when the next kid arrives. Meanwhile, the women in World A are discovering that empowerment tastes like ashes when there is no one left to empower you except the government agent who decides whether you get 800 calories a day or 1,200 based on your social credit score. That is the end game. That is the finish line. That is the permanent reordering of the species that began the moment the first man in 2015 looked at the deal, closed the laptop, and said, "Nah, I'm good." Everything since then has just been the dominoes falling in perfect order. So when your normie friends, your blue pill family members, your coworker who still watches mainstream news ask you, what's happening to dating? Why are men so quiet? Why won't anyone commit anymore? You don't need a 34,000 word essay. You can give them the shortest answer in human history that contains all the truth they will ever need. They finally listened. And once a man truly listens, the game is over forever. There is no reset button. There is no grand reconciliation. There is no moment where the music swells and everyone decides to give the old system one more chance. The old system is dead. It died the day the last man who was willing to play by its rules walked away and never came back. The future belongs to the men who chose peace over chaos, brotherhood over betrayal, legacy over loneliness, reality over fantasy. The future belongs to the men who stopped arguing and started building. And the future belongs to the men who looked at the burning building, grabbed their brothers, and walked out the door without once looking back to see who was still inside, screaming for someone else to put out the fire. That is the story of our time. That is the story you are living right now. And that is the story your sons or your future sons or the sons of the men who listened will tell their grandchildren one day while sitting on a porch somewhere far away from the ruins, drinking something cold, watching another generation grow up free. All roads led here. All roads lead to MWA. Men walking away. What did you think about everything I just laid out for you? Do you see it? Do you feel it? Are you already living it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and the best ones get pinned. If this hits you square in the chest, the way it was meant to, smash that like button right now. Subscribe and hit all notifications because we are just getting started. And if you know a man who still hasn't heard the truth, spoken this plainly, share this video with him today. Do not let him find out 10 years too late. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, share it if it fired you up. And just remember, all roads lead to MWA. Men walking away. Cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.